Secretary General, nice to see you and thank you for agreeing to talk about Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to focus on some events that has happened during last week with your participation. On Tuesday, we had a meeting of core group in Brussels, where some good news about the so-called tribunal on Putin, as we call it, were announced. Do you see that we will have major progress in this topic?
I think, it was a very important moment, and that's why I wanted really to be present in Brussels to have the occasion to speak also to the core group, just to make sure that everybody understands how important it is. What is the question about? The question is to make sure that we will have no acceptance for impunity. It is not possible to want to live in a world where force, violence, destruction and impunity will prevail. And I'm not speaking only about Ukraine. It's for Ukraine, for Ukrainian people, but it is for the whole continent, for the whole world. We need a world where peaceful relation, where rule of law and accountability will prevail. That's why I wanted to be present and also to make sure that we see the special tribunal as a part of a larger context, with the register of damage that the Council of Europe created 2 years ago. And now we need the claims commission and the full compensation mechanism. It is an important element. And the third element, it is the European Court of Human Rights addressing right now, as we speak, also all violations of human rights in Ukraine following the aggression of Russia. But we need to have the three elements to make sure that accountability will prevail.
So let's go one by one. Let's start from tribunal. We in Ukraine, we call it as tribunal for Putin, because everyone knows that Putin was responsible for the crime of aggression. Let's say a key responsible person. I understand that it's up to judges, up to the structure that will be established to take a decision. But can we be sure that at least Putin's actions would be prosecuted or studied?
The starting point is to see that the crime of aggression was recognized. It is a decision on the United Nations, I think in March 22, and a huge majority of the members of the United Nations accepted the text recognizing the crime of aggression. That's the first point. The second point, it is that at the moment, we have no jurisdiction competent, able to take this crime of aggression and to address this on the judiciary level. That's why we must create an own tribunal, a special tribunal to address this. And then, justice must work. Justice must work. We need to have the framework, to have the resources, to have the justice working, to have the prosecutors, to have the judges, to have everything that we need for a tribunal. And addressing the crime of aggression is clearly also addressing the people who decided to launch the aggression.
Timeline is also important. As far as I understand, this meeting was a kind of pre-final. Is that correct? And when do you expect to have a final meeting of core group and this tribunal to be established?
They need, what I heard, one more small discussion just to be sure that all the elements of the text and the agreement are okay. And then, if it is so, the Council of Europe could start really soon. We are ready. The Council of Europe is ready to act right now. And the objective must be that in this year, we will be able to then to have the negotiations, then to have an agreement, and then to have a diplomatic conference also this year accepting results.
But this year is realistic.
It is. I think it is ambitious, but we need ambition. It is not possible just to wait from the moment where we have this problem. The crime of aggression has been recognized by the United Nations, but we don't have a tribunal. We need to create this, and our ambition is to create the tribunal in this year.
People in Ukraine needs justice. It's a public request.
Well, I think justice is continuously given by the European Court on human rights. Never forget, please, that since the start of the war in 2014, all the violations of human rights can be addressed by the European Court on Human Rights, and the European Court is doing this job, and it is one important element. The second element, it is about all destruction of housing, death, death of family members. And for this element, we need to have a good documentation on this. You know, that's why the register of damage was a very important key milestone in 2023. It was interesting to see how fast it was possible to create a fully new instrument to register the damage. And then we have now, you know, on the register around 13,000 registered that have been damage that have been registered. It is growing continuously, and we are also opening new possibilities and new categories for this registry. We need for this the highest possible quality of documentation, you know, because at the end it will be clearly the question about the reparation, clearly the question about the full compensation mechanism, and we are also ready to make this real this year.
I would also ask a question about this compensation mechanism, but let me clarify. Is there a timeline when trial on the crime of aggression can start? You know,
for me, it's really impossible to answer this question, because it is really important to have, also for the legitimacy and the credibility of the tribunal, it is not possible for me on, I would say, a political side to say to the tribunal how they need to work, how they must work. We must create the conditions. We must create the conditions, the good conditions for them to work, and then it will be their job. But I think it is too early now to answer this question. My job and our job must be now to make sure that it is possible to create a special tribunal as soon as possible.
What is the point of no return when we can say that now this court would be established and would work properly?
A diplomatic conference adopting the document would be really the milestone for the creation of the tribunal.
Very important question, and let's not hide elephant or Trump in the room. So this tribunal cannot work only with European countries. Is there political support from the new United States administration? You've been in Brussels on Tuesday. What was there? Was there some political will from Washington, D.C.?
I think it is important to have a strong legitimacy for the tribunal. You need also to have a strong support. That means you need to have the G7 on board, for example. You need to have a lot of countries also supporting the tribunal and working on it. And not only on the European continent, but on all continents.
Do you have that?
As I said, we will see. It has not started yet, you know. But as I said before, it is really important not to accept just that impunity could prevail. That's why we are doing this. But for this, we need a broad, really wide support. G7 will be key. And yeah, you mentioned the new US administration. Until now, we don't have negative signals. But then, you know, you will see just during the negotiations what it exactly means.
Do you have positive signals?
We had very positive signals until now because, you know, the G7 and also the US are fully on board for the register of damage. Are fully on board for all the discussion for the next elements, and it is a part of the whole context, you know, as I mentioned before, and the special tribunal is also part of the whole context, what we can do to make sure that accountability will prevail at the end.
You have definitely heard about ideas to have peace negotiations, or I would rather call them ceasefire negotiations. Is there any connection between this process and process of creation of tribunal?
It's quite difficult to answer. What I can say in this context, it is that the uncertainty that we see right now, the insecurity that we see right now, it is probably bigger today than it was 1 year ago about the situation, how it will evolve. The only thing we can do, and I speak here for the Council of Europe, is to go as fast as we can, because each step that we could make, then we have made a step, you know, and we are one step further. That's so important. That's why we are giving what we can, really everything to make sure that we can make some progress as fast as possible. Because when we are further, when we are far, I would say, it is a stronger position also for all the discussion about accountability.
You have already touched upon this registry of damage, which is a huge achievement of Council of Europe. And let's be frank, for ordinary people, it's important not just to register damage, but to have compensation.
Exact.
What is the progress on this field?
We made last week very good progress. I'm really happy. You know, I have been in Ukraine in December. It was the occasion for me, you know, to visit Kiev, to have a lot of meetings, but I was also in Yahidne, I was also in Chernihiv. I visited in Kiev the Okhmadit hospital, you know all these places. And it was really important for me also to address this message in Ukraine, to say, hey, we are ready. The Council of Europe is strongly dedicated to the support for Ukraine, for accountability, and at the end for the values, the shared values that we have, you know, democracy, rule of law, and human rights. Because I mentioned at the very beginning, it is really important to know and to engage for the world in which we want to live. And it is a world based on the rule of law and peaceful relations, and where it is possible to have perspectives for yourself, for your families, for your friends, for the country, for a good economic development for the next generations. And engaging for this, it is clearly engaging for Ukraine, but it is also engaging for all of us. And not only on the European continent, but also all around the world. That's the point I wanted to make. But now, how fast? There was a question. We made good progress last week, and the Council of Europe has the resources, the skills, the competences. We have also the experience with the register, and it is also possible in this element. It is a very important part of the framework. Also, in this element, to go straight forward and to make progress. And also here, for the Claims Commission and full compensation mechanism, I think we should be able to achieve this goal this year.
So the goal for this year is to create what? Commission, or technically?
Claims Commission, and to have the discussion about the full compensation mechanism. But also here, like for the special tribunal, you know, it is a tool that doesn't exist at the moment. And we must create this exactly as we create the register of damage 2 years ago. And, you know, a lot of people were telling, you know, it's not possible to create this, you will not succeed with this idea. No, it was wrong. We succeed. We create this with all the member states with all the parties in the register of damage, and we should use the same way, the same experience to make the next step. That means claims commission, to make it real, you know, and then full compensation mechanism with also all the discussion about reparation, clearly.
Let me ask you about post-war Ukraine. What are the conditions to make Ukraine successful and prosperous country? You
know, I think after well, until now, if we see 11 years of war, in these incredible difficult conditions. I mean, it was a lot of discussion about the resilience of Ukraine and of the people in Ukraine. I must tell you, I was always really impressed also to experience this, also speaking with Ukrainians, visiting Kiev several times in the last year. And I think after these 11 years, just think about what it means for the youngest generation, for example. For the younger generation, the youngest people today, maybe with the age of 20, they spend the half of their life in the war context. I think to reconstruct, to repair this, also on the social level, for families, for individuals, it will be absolutely key to have confidence for the future, for the people of Ukraine and for the country. I think it will be a huge engagement, and it's important to underline that it is a task for all of us, not just for Ukraine, you know. It is not just about reparation and money. It is also about repairing souls and lives, and to see how is it possible to have in this quite brutal world, what you experience now, this brutality since many years, to have the force and the occasion to being confident in the future, to build a positive future for Ukraine and for Ukrainian people.
I would also bet that one of key problems that we will have to tackle is lack of people, especially young people who has left Ukraine due to war. Do you see a particular role for the Council of Europe in engaging them to return home?
It is exactly what I mentioned several times. I think it is not possible to have a good, positive social development without to have a peaceful relations, stability, and perspectives. But you know, I know Ukraine since many years. I was in Ukraine in 2009, visiting the country on that time in president capacities. I was several times present in the last year. I think Ukraine has everything that you need to have a prosperous future. But at the moment, right now, peaceful conditions, relations based on the rule of law, stability, and perspectives for the people. That's the point that we will need to build again. But then I think I'm sure that the people the Ukrainians want to live in Ukraine. They want good conditions to live in Ukraine, and we have to engage together to create those good conditions. You mentioned also the youngest people, maybe abroad. I just want to underline an important step that we made this week at the Council of Europe. I just decided yesterday to appoint my new special envoy for the children of Ukraine. I think it is a very important task. I was really happy to be able to nominate, to have as a candidate, and to have now as my special envoy for the children of Ukraine, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iceland, Mrs. Tordis Gifalsdottir, really experienced. She knows Ukraine. She was Foreign Minister for the preparation of the summit of Reykjavik, dedicated to the support of Ukraine, and she was she's also a lawyer that will also really help to make a very good, strong and good job for supporting the children of Ukraine.
Let's wait for her steps, because we want to judge on steps, and I'm pretty sure that she will succeed. But let me to conclude with questions about broader region. We see Ukraine is not the only country in the Council of Europe, of course, and we see that there are plenty of challenges elsewhere. We see that now two countries are ignoring the assembly. Azerbaijan has ceased to cooperate with the assembly last year. Georgia is considering, let's say, this step. We'll see if they stick to the same approach. What is the future of Council of Europe? Do you think that it should be a council of like-minded countries, or you can tolerate?
That's a very interesting question, a very strong question. You know, I think the European family, the Council of Europe, 46, would say, proud and equal members. And we are really a family with a huge variety, huge diversity of culture, languages, histories, people. And this diversity is the very strong asset for the European continent, but at the same time, it is, challenging. It is challenging just to manage. It's exactly what we have in the Council of Europe. And we succeed in the past, after the World War II, in the 75, 76 last years, we succeeded being a family, European family, united around strong values. Democracy, rule of law, human rights, around also very important texts. First of all, the convention, the European Convention on Human Rights. And now, as you mentioned, we have some concerns with different countries. I think the delegation, parliamentary delegation of Azerbaijan was not accepted at the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, which denied them the credentials. And for Georgia last week, they voted on the credentials positively, but with conditions, and then the Georgian delegation decided to leave. Now we have the difficulties. You know why? It is because in this context that we see since years, backsliding democracy everywhere. We see, not only positive, but also very negative developments on democracy, rule of law, and human rights. And it is a strong concern for us. We are on a continent after a long phase of, I would say, convergence, on the values. Now we are in a very difficult phase with a lot of divergent forces. And it is my role, our role, even if it is difficult, always to be in contact with all actors, to speak with everybody, and always through dialogue, to try to find the right way. I think there is always necessary to have dialogue where it is possible.
Well, with Russia, you made a strong step and decided that it's not possible.
Exactly. There is always a limit, clearly. and the Council of Europe decided to expel Russia in 22. You know, you must try with dialogue if you have a certain level of respect for the values, even if it is diverging. Russia, what can I say? Russia made a war of aggression on a neighbor, Ukraine, destroying all the values. Democracy, rule of law, and human rights, respecting nothing. In this condition, the minimal commitment that we need around the values is not more given.
Azerbaijan did not cross that red line yet.
You know, it is a different situation. I think it's not to compare with Russia. We are trying with all countries to work together to see how it is possible to make some improvement. And with Azerbaijan, it was quite complicated in the last month with the intergovernmental cooperation. And I was in Baku in last November to try to restart the intergovernmental cooperation, to restart all the work that we can do together on the monitoring on all those elements, and it is progressing. And we must always try, and well, even in difficult conditions, from the moment where certain conditions are fulfilled.
Thank you very much for that interview, and I very much hope that all your initiatives, at least on Ukraine, would definitely work.
I thank you. Thank you very much.